Hello! This is HoneyBadgerRadio, and my name is Alison Tiemann, and I am with Hannah Wallen, who is the host of HBR Talk, who'll be doing a show tonight on our Badger Live Streams channel. The link will be available right here. And Hannah, you have a very important topic you want to cover, and I have no idea what it is. I still don't know, even though you've attempted to tell me several times. Which is entirely my fault. But so tell me, what's going on with the topic, and what did you ultimately decide to make it?
Well, I went through a process this week picking out a topic, and it initially was going to be, as I mentioned last week on the show, how to raise strong female characters. We talk a lot about how to create fictional strong female characters, but what do you got to do to raise your daughter to actually have strength of character? And I wanted to do that, but I realized before I do that, I'm gonna have to sort of clarify a little bit about what strength of character is. And one of the things that modern American women and modern women in general are lacking, that is very important to strength of character, is resilience. And it's one of those things we lack accountability as in terms of how society responds to us. Even women who within themselves have personal accountability do not have social accountability, and it allows for a weakness, a lack of resilience, that women don't land on their feet because they don't have to. And there's a mentality behind that, and I wanted to discuss that as well. So that's going to end up being an upcoming topic as well, because this week, while I was thinking about that, I happened to watch a massive gaslighting take place on social media, and
Okay.
a boatload of women fell for this, right?
Hmm.
And it sort of goes along with that mentality, that accept what you're told by authority mentality.
Okay.
That lack of accountability leads to, like, if you're not responsible for yourself, then you have to go with what the person who is responsible, or the entity that is
Mhm.
responsible for you,
And if you're taught it's
says.
not you, then it can
Yeah,
pretty much anybody can occupy that role.
right. So the idea that 2 plus 2 is 5 is under debate on social media right now, and this has been pushed by essentially postmodernists, and it's been pushed really hard this week. And there were even postmodernist math professors and math teachers, and some really heavy hitters that were promoting this idea and giving explanations promoting this idea. And the explanations, a lot of them involve a bait and switch of the meaning or use of terminology. What we're talking about. A good example of that is one individual used the explanation that 2 laps plus 2 laps around a track or in a swimming pool would get you the same result as 5 laps. You would get back to your starting point. When you do a lap, you always get back to your starting point. So if you did 2 laps and then you did 2 more laps, you would be at the starting point. And if you did 5 laps, you would be at the starting point. And so they concluded that 2 plus 2 equals 5. The problem is 2 laps plus 2 laps is 4 laps. And the equation 2 plus 2 is 4 equals 4 is the statement that if you add 2, a measure of 2 units of something, to 2 more units of the same thing, you get 4 units of that thing. And the thing was laps, not the destination. And, it would be the same thing as saying 4 and 5 are the same quantity. And that's not true. So that was a bait and switch. And a lot of students in today's education system are not being taught the underlying meaning of what they are studying when they study math or even English. If you ask a student the difference between an adverb and an adjective, a lot of times they'll give you adjectives modify nouns, adverbs modify, and then they'll give you a laundry list of every part of speech that is not a noun. And then if you ask them what that means, they will give you a blank stare. And if you ask them to explain modify, they'll give you a blank stare. They don't necessarily they can't picture that what you're saying is an adjective changes the meaning that is being communicated when you use a noun. For instance, dog is a noun. It's the name of the animal that we call a dog. And dead dog
Modifies
is
that
different. It's modified, right? Now,
significantly.
very significantly, you picture a dog in your mind, cute little fluffy puppy, right? And if you say dead dog, it has been modified. You just changed it. It's now no longer a living dog. And this is an example my dad used to give in class all the time. And his students, would get to the 8th grade and they wouldn't know this. They'd know that laundry list, they could rattle it all off, but they couldn't explain any of it. And he had the same problem in math when he taught math. The students, and this is an issue with female-run classrooms. Students would get to his classes in junior high having memorized by rote the formulas and the vocabulary and so on, but they would have no understanding of their meaning.
No fundamental understanding, yeah.
Right. And you cannot develop strength of character, you cannot develop resilience, you cannot develop accountability, you can't develop any kind of understanding of your impact on the world and how to maximize the benefit you provide to the world and the benefit you get from providing a benefit to the world if you don't even understand the terms and you can't evaluate anything. And that's so I think what we end up needing to discuss before we discuss resilience and strength of character is this dumbing down. We talked about the education system, but this particular type of dumbing down and this particular type of autopilot chicanery, that's basically going to be the discussion this week. So we're going to be talking about no, 2 + 2 does not equal 5. Stop it.
Well, it's also an aspect of mastery, because when you understand the underlying system, the underlying formula or rules to mathematics and to grammar, you have mastered them. And that means that you are able to deal with unique and unexpected situations.
Exactly.
And you can convey, and not just that, you can also convey reasonable information to other people. The systems that underlie mathematics is a system of information. It has rules so that people have a certain amount of equality when engaging with it. What that means is anybody can learn those rules and develop prowess in mathematics. And once you do, nobody can take that away from you. You have that ability, and it's based on your skills. It's based on your efforts. It's based on you grinding. In my case, for example, calculus, spending nights during the week, extra time trying to develop an understanding of the underlying principles of calculus. Nobody can take that away from me. But if you start to say that these underlying principles don't hold, then what is determining the correct result from an equation like 2 + 2? It's authority. You look at 1984, and that's exactly the point. Instead of having a system of information that you can learn and share with others, which is ultimately very egalitarian. The math doesn't care what race you are, what ethnicity you are, what color you are. It is math. It remains a system of information that you can use to exchange significant, like very important information with each other, and that you can learn to master the underlying rules of. Now, if you're going to start to defy that, then what is creating the ultimate conclusion of any particular, like 2 + 2 = 5? What's making that true? Well, it's not people engaging with the system of information on an equal playing field. It's an authority telling you what's true. And that's a completely, that is actually an aspect of losing resilience, because you go from being able to understand unique situations and apply a skill that you've mastered. So, for example, if you come across, I don't know, if you're in a group of people and you have, 4 people, and you have 12 oysters that you want to share amongst each other, you can understand how many each person should get equally. You can divide it. You can do that mathematic in a completely novel situation and come to a satisfactory answer that everybody can agree upon. If you don't have that, you can't in that scenario. You basically have to resort to whoever can grab the most oysters, which is like
Right.
the application of force. So, and resilience really is the ability to come to a unique situation, use the skills and mastery that you have from the past, and arrive at a new solution. So, in any situation where you're encountering a math problem and you've been told by authority what the answer is, you have no resilience because you have no understanding of the underlying principles and you cannot apply them to master a new situation. So, yeah,
Yep.
this is
All you can
actually
do is listen and attempt to obey, and that
listen and
seems to be
obey
what's
and
being.
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it actually also has a really deep situation that's happening with what is going on with this spectrum of gender and gender fluidity. People don't become non-gendered. They don't become gender fluid. They don't become, some sort of point in between men and women. They become undifferentiated. And undifferentiated people actually are at a deficit when it comes to coping skills, resilience, and mental health coping skills. And I think that this is just another aspect of that drive towards authoritarianism. And one of the drives towards authoritarianism is to take away people's mastery, and part of that is to take away their ability to master the various psychological tools associated with men and women, and also now apparently math. Because if we master these tools, and men can master women's tools and women's can master men's tools, that doesn't make them both then undifferentiated. It just means that they've mastered both tool sets. They become both, essentially. It's not undifferentiated. A man remains a man even when he is able to master the tool set of women. Women remain women even when they're able to master the psychological tool set of men. But this is all a part of this almost authoritarian drive to remove mastery from people so they become more compliant, less resilient, and more incapable of doing anything but listen and obey. Yeah, this
So
is
they can be
really
mastered.
sinister. Yeah, so they can be mastered. Uh, and I'm looking at the tweets with this. Uh,
Scary, isn't it?
2 plus 2 equals 4 is not an empirical truth, it's a moral truth. I don't believe because human beings have the ability to understand reality or any of that stupid bullshit. I believe it because it's an integrated and necessary component of the human experience and our belief structures. Oh, that's actually a good point. I don't know if it's necessarily a moral truth, but it is something that we've all agreed upon to convey information that is valuable to us. I mean, yes, there may be something arbitrary to it, but it's part of
Yeah.
our system. It is a system of information that allows us to master the ability to convey information with each other and has rules. Well, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. The postmodernists definitely are.
They're really ramping it up.
Yeah, this is almost insane what they're
This is
doing.
it's an attack on people's ability to understand reality, and it is an attack on people's ability to communicate reality and defend their experience of reality, which takes away your ability to defend your human rights. If you cannot describe reality and you cannot defend your experience of reality, you cannot complain about your experiences, and you can't describe your boundaries because the concept of boundaries could be malleable. And I've seen that with respect to masks. Like, I am all for recommending and conveying all of the available information, the masks, what work they do, how well they work, how much people should rely on them versus, you really can't give up social distancing just because you have a mask. It's just like you wouldn't take all of the other protective measures off of your car just because you have a seatbelt, right? Um, so, but the mask discussion has ceased to be about the value of masks, really, and has become about the value of government authority as a means of making people do things. So instead of discussing whether or not wearing a mask is a good idea and what information is available to back one's case regarding whether or not wearing a mask, we're discussing whether or not wearing a mask should be legislated, whether people should be arrested if they leave the house without a mask, whether it's justified for an individual to verbally accost and aggress against another individual for wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And we're actually at the point now where I have repeatedly from other people received, in all seriousness, on social media, I have received from other people the argument that they have the right to aggressively, verbally confront another person for violating their personal space and their personal boundaries from across the room.
Mm. Wow.
Essentially breathing rape, right? You've heard of stare rape, men looking at women from across the room. Well, now we have breathing rape. You're not wearing a mask, therefore you're invading my space because you're breathing the same air that I'm breathing.
All right. Well, if you would like to hear more on this topic of authoritarian interventions in our life, including authoritarian interventions into math, of all things, then please go to Simon wants to point it out. Simon wants to be useful. Go where Simon is sort of slouching and click the link here.
There you have it. HoneyBadgerRadio using animal labor.
Yeah, I'm using animal labor. Uncompensated animal labor, unless you count his food, of course.
I was gonna say, you feed him, don't you?
Yes, I do. And I give him lodgings. But maybe he'd like a currency that cats and dogs can use. Who knows? All right. Well, thank you for your kind attention. And if you'd like to hear more on this discussion, the discussion of this topic, please go to Badger Live Streams for HBR Talk. Have a lovely day, my lovely specimens. And you too, my loveliest specimen.